Boa noite, pessoal. Tudo bem? Bem-vindo a todo mundo. Já vamos iniciar aqui. Bom, acho que já temos online aqui a professora Lucia Pedrana. E hoje damos início à nossa segunda apresentação do 13º Seminário Internacional de Arquitetura e Urbanismo da PUC Minas. A disciplina Seminários 1, 2, 3 e 4 é realizada de forma integrada entre as unidades Coração Eucarístico e Praça da Liberdade, intercalando palestras presenciais e virtuais. Nossa conferencista de hoje é a curadora Lucia Pedrana, do European Cultural Center de Veneza, na Itália. Lucia é curadora sênior e produtora da European Cultural Center, na Itália, onde é atualmente diretora de Relações Universitárias. Lucia tem anos de experiência na criação, gestão e curadoria de exposições internacionais de grande escala. Anteriormente, trabalhou como assessora de imprensa internacional para vários pavilhões nacionais na Bienal de Veneza e ocupou vários cargos no Museu Peggy Guggenheim, em Veneza. O tema da conferência é Curadoria de Arquitetura, Foco no Sul Global e América Latina. Agradecemos novamente a participação da Lucia e passo a palavra a ela. Boa apresentação. Welcome, Lucia. Are you online?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pedro, for inviting me to this conversation. I'm very happy to be here, and please apologize for my English. It's quite late here in Italy. And what I would like to do today is to share with you a little bit of my experience about curating architecture. I wish I had a lot of knowledge about what is happening in America Latina, but what I decided to do today is really to share what is my experience and how being where I am, meaning in Venice, I could look at the evolution of the exhibition in architecture through, let's say, the Bienal of Venice. So I will share a little bit about it. You will see also a little bit of my background, and let me share my screen so we immediately see if we have some problem.
Thank you very much once more for being with us. Take the time you need, all right? We're among friends.
Thank you. All right. Let me know if you see my screen.
Yes, we do.
And the presentation, right?
Perfect.
Okay, so as I mentioned, I like to share my point of view, and I like to share that what I had the chance to experience over the past 20 years is how the Venice Biennial can be a sort of mirror of what is a contemporary society, and then it's gonna have, of course, a little bit of examples of also of other biennials all around the world, and about the participation of countries from Latin America in big exhibitions like the Venice Biennale. So this is what I'm going to share with you today. Please interrupt me anytime if you have any question. If there is something that is not clear, I'm happy to clarify. Okay, maybe if this moves. 1 second. Voila. So a little bit about myself. I'm based in Venice, and you will see through the conversation today. I'm not an architect, although I'm surrounded daily by many architects and many architecture students, but I am an art historian that through their career happened to end up in an architecture world. So what I did is that I have a bachelor in art history, I have a master in contemporary art history, and then I have another master in arts management, which made me start working in museums like the Peggy Guggenheim collection, and introduced me to this big world, which is the Biennale di Venezia. Through the years, I also had some experience at the Milan Design Week, and since 2014, I work at the European Cultural Center in Venice, starting as exhibition organizer, and then through the years finding my current position, which is the head of the university relations, as has been previously shared. So I like to start from where I am. I like to start from Venice, and I like to start from a quote by Italo Calvino from the Invisible Cities, who say, like, every time I describe a city, I'm seeing something about Venice. And this is our observation point for this afternoon. Venice, as you probably know, has many beautiful things, but also has many challenges. And the challenges that Venice has as the challenges of different cities all around the world. So as you know, like, we are facing floodings, that you have some images that can give you a little bit of the atmosphere that we experience here in Venice. And there are like many solutions that current engineers and architects are trying to find and apply in order to save our beautiful city. We have like over tourism and all the consequences of related to this, meaning that Venice is becoming more and more a city where for residents is more difficult to live, and is more like a city which is designed and planned for foreigners and for externals to come and live and visit the city. I wanted to bring this image to you to have an idea about what could be Venice when you walk around. Maybe many of you had the chance to visit it, but this is something that is becoming more and more frequent. The number that you see, that like the 49,999 is the number of residents that the historical center basically touched last July. And is since a couple of months that the number of residents in the historical center of Venice is less than the numbers of hotel rooms. So that is just the data for you to understand like the kind of situation we are living in the city. And of course, Venice is the city of this beautiful architecture. This is an image of Cadoro, but everything around Venice is a beautiful example of Renaissance and Gothic architecture that hopefully you had the chance to see, or you're going to have the chance to see in the near future. And of course, Venice is the city of La Biennale di Venezia. The Venice Biennale is the most ancient biennale that we have in the world, and that started in 1895 with the Art Biennale. And then afterwards, the word biennale became a thing, right? Became a word that is internationally known for this format of exhibition that happens every year or every second year around the world and speaks about a specific topic in the art or in the architecture field. Here you have an image of the headquarters of La Biennale in the center of Venice, and you have a little map of the city, which for some of you might be familiar, the shape of the fish that the map of Venice has, with the Grand Canal in the center. And important is to look at these big red spots here, which are the two main venues of La Biennale di Venezia. Why I wanted to share with you the map is because La Biennale di Venezia, as many other biennials, is not an exhibition that only takes place in one museum or one building. It's an exhibition that takes place all around the city. But of course, La Biennale focuses on two main venues. So I'm gonna take you a little bit in Biennale. So the two main venues of La Biennale di Venezia are Giardini and Arsenale. And we start from Giardini, which was the first venue of La Biennale. I included some pictures. And as I said before, I'm not an architect, I'm not a designer, and I'm sure you can tell from my presentation, so apologies about the very basic design. But I wanted to share with you some images of the buildings that are part of the Giardini of La Biennale. This is where everything started. This is where the idea of having an exposition which could represent the current or the most avant-garde art production and later on architecture production for different countries started taking place. So you can see through the buildings and the design of the buildings representing each of the country part of La Biennale also the architecture style, not only of the country, but also of the year, of the age where those they have been designed and later built. Here you can see most of the, let's say, oldest participants in Biennale. Of course, you have the United States, you have UK, you have the Netherlands, but I like to share these images also to show you like that this was like chance for each of the country to show the best they could do basically in the field of art. From 1895, we have every second year the Art Biennale, and then later on in 1980, we started with the Architecture Biennale. But again, you have some images of the Dutch pavilion here, which was designed by Rietveld. We have the pretty new Australian pavilion, which is the latest which has been built. Technically speaking, from 1992, it's not possible to build any new pavilion in Giardini. But since there was a previous building, the Australian government has been allowed to create this huge black cube in the Giardini of La Biennale. So as I mentioned before, each of these little houses works as a little embassy of art and architecture during the 6 or 7 months that the Biennale takes place here in Venice. Every odd year, we have the Art Biennale, and every even year, we have the Architecture Biennale. And the calendar changed in 2021, 2021, because of the pandemics. So this year, 2023, is an architecture year. I also wanted to show you these images to make us, let's say, reflect about the idea that Biennale is not an exhibition only, but is also a mirror of what is the political and the let's say, the contemporary socio-political situation. And in these images, you might see that from this pavilion, which says Czechoslovakia. So it still brings together the Czech Republic and the Slovakia as the two countries were one when they were built. And this is one of the examples that you can find also in many other places. What happens is that since there was no possibility for countries to build their pavilion, the Biennale had to find another solution, and that was to add a second. I'm gonna go back here. I'm gonna find a second venue for the pavilions, and this second venue found this house in the ancient Arsenale di Venezia. Here you have a picture from an aerial view on Venezia and this area, which is called the Arsenale. The Arsenale was the place where the famous and strong fleet of the Republic of Venice was built. So basically that was the symbol of power, economical, political power of the Republic of Venice, which at that time was a very strong city, able to have its bases all around the Mediterranean Sea and later on through the Asia, thanks to the travels of Marco Polo through the Silk Road. But to go back to Biennale, this area is the one which has been restored during the 70s, and that has been given to the artistic directors of La Biennale and to the national pavilions to create their exhibitions. In the floor plan that you have here, you can see the red part, which is the main exhibition created by the artistic director of La Biennale, and these little sections are the national pavilions. Those are basically the countries they could not find their own house in Giardini, and that are given and rented out by the Biennale organization for each of the participating country to have its own exhibition space. There are also other pavilions. They do not have a house in Arsenale or in Giardini, and they also cannot afford it. And this is also what makes possible for the city to leave the Venetian Biennale experience, meaning that many palaces or many locations all spread around the city, they have the chance to host smaller pavilions. Before I skipped the Brazilian pavilion, as you know, like this year, you probably know very well this building, but I wanted to highlight it, and I also wanted to highlight how good reviews and how good feedbacks everybody received about the pavilion of this year, which got the Golden Lion for the best national participation this year, and the pavilion has been curated by Gabriela D'Amatos and Paulo Tavares, which you're probably very familiar with their work. What I also wanted to highlight through these images is how the national participation system works, and how, as I said before, we can see the Venice Biennale as a sort of map of how the international policies works and how that interrelates with the presentation of international art and architecture from all over the world. So as you probably know, each of the pavilion has a different system, and this system is led by the different governments of each country participating in Biennale. And for Brazil, for instance, the commissioner, so who decides who is going to be the curator of the pavilion, is the Biennial of São Paulo Foundation. So there is always like an institution, which can be public or private, from that country, that selects a commissioner, which then is going to choose through an open call or through a direct call the participants and who is going to represent the country in the international exhibition by La Biennale. So this is to say that there is for sure influence on what is the international relations between the different countries, what are the international relationships that the Italian government has with these other countries, when like certain pavilions, meaning certain countries have the chance to participate or not, or have the chance to choose what they are going to present in the exhibition. And of course, also what can be who is going to then win the Biennale di Venezia, which is in the end of the day is a contest. So this is Arsenale. These are some images from the Arsenale. That is a beautiful location in the art of Venice, and that every year is really like changed by the curator and the architects or the artists that are going to intervene within this very special space. These are some examples of the national pavilions that are presented in the Arsenale. So you see the architecture of the Arsenale, which is quite specific, with very big spaces and very different installations they are created there. I wanted to bring examples of countries very different from what we have seen in Giardini. So we had the Pavilion of Mexico, we have Turkey, we have the Emirates, we have the Philippines, and we have Kazakhstan, which are one of the, not the latest, but like one of the latest recognized countries to be presented in the Biennale. Sorry. So as I mentioned before, it's about also policy. As I said before, like the Biennale di Venezia is an organization which is a public organization, and to look at what can be also like the reflection through the exhibition, is important to look at what who is leading this organization. So for you to know, like the board of directors of the Biennale di Venezia is made of the Italian Minister of Culture, but the governor of the region of Venice, the president of the province, and the mayor of Venice. And why is that important? Is that because they choose the jury, that we have a selection of the two latest jury from 2021 and 2023 from the latest two architecture biennial. They choose the jury, they select the artistic director, meaning the curator of the Biennale, and they select the president. I choose these two pictures of the two latest architecture biennale with Hashim Sarkis, the dean of the architecture school at MIT, together with the previous president, Paolo Baratta, and Leslie Locke co-curating the current architecture exhibition together with the latest president, Mario Cicutto. So you see also like how the faces of the jury might be today, and also like how we're gonna see later a little bit like how the faces of the curators of the Biennale has been for the majority of its own edition. And something that is very important for me to share, and that you notice when you follow like the different editions of Biennale, is that again, the Italian government has a very important influence on that, since only countries which are recognized by the Italian government can have a national pavilion. And that, of course, has an influence on what is the view, what is the perspective that is given to the international audience. So let's say that from a certain point of view can be limited to something that is very linked to the political views of the current national government. And this means that, for instance, many regions or many places around the world, they cannot find the possibility to be like a national participation. And for that, there are like other possibilities. And the program of Biennale, beside the main exhibition created by the artistic director, which is spread between Arsenale and Giardini, and the national participations, which are spread towards the Giardini, the Arsenale, and other locations around the city, also includes what is called collateral events. The collateral events include a variety of exhibitions that are linked to the topic defined by the artistic director. And in this section, also those countries, not countries, if I can say so, for the Italian government, they also find their place. So this is like a selection of some of the collateral events of the current 2023 Architecture Biennial. And as you can see, we have, for instance, the Scottish Pavilion, the Catalonia Pavilion, Taiwan, Hong Kong. And this is something that gives a chance of different parts of the world to be represented. On top of it, of course, we have also museums, mainly local museums, and international universities bringing different projects. I also wanted to bring, this is an image from the Art Biennial, but just to give you an idea that, for instance, also Palestine had this first unofficial pavilion with being a collateral event last year. And for the guidelines by La Biennale, it cannot have a national pavilion. Then there are other events they take place in the city, and of course one of the biggest player in the city is the European Cultural Center, which I collaborate with, but we'll go back to that later. Before we finish our walk through the Biennale. This is a list of the architecture Biennale artistic directors since its first years. And I want to not just to list them to give you an idea about like who was the voice, who was the face of the Biennale. Which of course, if you look at the faces like on the top part of the screen, you don't have that much variety, you don't have that much of diversity. For sure, you have very big names and masters in architecture. But let's say that over the years, there have been a few of the artistic directors making a difference in the direction of La Biennale. And one of them for sure is Francesco Dalcò, who has been for many years also the director of the Venice School of Architecture. He was the first one who wanted to apply the same system as the Art Biennale had with the national participations. And that was the first year in 1991 where all the countries already participating in the art show were also invited to represent the best projects they could, let's say, offer in the field of architecture and urban planning. And Dalco was also the first one who invited international architecture schools to participate in the Biennale. And that year we had 43 different architecture schools from around the world participating in the exhibition. That for sure is was a very strong message from Dalco, and was a very strong message for us to think about the Biennale not only as a showcase, but also to think about the Biennale as a place where current and latest research are presented, latest research that are also somehow exposed to a broader audience that can give a feedback, can have a different understanding from the audience made out of architects or professionals in the field of architecture. So that for sure was a very important turning point in the history of architecture, and therefore of the representation of the international architecture on a platform like La Biennale. Then we started having like international curators, and then we in 2010 we had the first women curator, which is also like a not Italian curator, Kazuyo Seijima, who introduced, let's say, the season of the Archistars, curating the Biennale, and also wanted to push not only her own exhibition, but also the national participations to create contents that could really be better understood by an audience of non-architects. Before was mainly like visiting Biennale was mainly with models, with drawings, and something that you could expect to see in architecture studio. So that you guys understand very well, but less for the broader audience. And then everything started to be more and more open to a broader audience. And then an important turning point for La Biennale was that until 2012, La Biennale of Architecture was a 3 months long exhibition, compared to the Art Biennale, which was a 6 months long exhibition. But with Rem Koolhaas in 2014, the Biennale of Architecture started to be a 6 months long event. And that, of course, had a very strong impact on the city and on the perception of the architecture biennial, which until that moment was kind of perceived as a little sister of the larger Art Biennale. I see someone is raising an hand. Cecilia Araujo. If there is a question or that something is not clear, please. No? I continue. Okay. So, and something that happened after 2 years from Rem Koolhaas, is that Alejandro Aravena was selected to curate the Biennale. And that was another turning point, because Alejandro Aravena, compared to the previous curators, was much less known. And for the people around the Biennale sector, like there was a lot of curiosity about how and why Aravena was selected to be the curator and to give his perspective of what was the production in contemporary architecture. That was the Biennale titled "Reporting from the Front," and that literally describes what was the content of Aravena Biennale and what was the scope of its Biennale. So Aravena invited a very diverse group of architects, researchers, practitioners from all around the world, with a specific focus on Latin America. And that was the first time where a large presence of architects from Latin America was participating in the Venice Biennale, and that was also the first time that the curator asked all participants to really try to give a solution. To current issues they are and were affecting the cities, the regions, and the countries where all these architects were coming from. And through this research project, the visitors had the chance to see that many things, many issues happening in different parts of the world were not like really diverse, but were actually something very similar to what from different parts of the world each of the participants was living, and also was very close to the public. So that was for sure like an important turning point for the Biennale. Also let's say the selection of the artistic director changed in the last years, and we saw in 2020, which then became 2021, Hashim Sarkis, the Lebanese dean of the MIT School of Architecture, to curate the Biennale. For sure, his Biennale was a pure research project. He brought many academics, many researchers, and many innovative solutions, many innovative researches in the exhibition, bringing again the role of the research, the role of the academic institutions in architecture to the front of the international exhibition, therefore to the front of the international platform that the Biennale is. And then we finish with this excursus with the current curator of the Biennale, which is Leslie Locco. Leslie Locco is the first African curator of La Biennale Arquitetura, and the title of her Biennale, which is going to be open until the end of November this year, is The Laboratory of the Future. So through the latest Biennale from Aravena with Sarkis and Locco, we see the lens of the architecture Biennale, and therefore of the, let's say, Western world moving to another parts of the world. And this is something very important because, of course, that was not done before. The International Kermesse was really focusing on westernized look at what was the current production. So hopefully this is the direction that the Biennale is gonna keep maintaining and even more exploring over the next year. It's also important what is the title of the Biennale by Locco, which is the Laboratory of the Future, because for all of us involved in this kind of exhibitions, it's very important to see that the exhibition again is not a display, is a research opportunity, is a research lab from that brings together voices from all around the world, but also that turns the city, in this case of Venice, into a lab, into a playground for the architects. They come and they bring their project to the audience. So this is another image that for me really gives an idea about what is the direction that the Biennale is taking. There is Leslie Locco, current curator of the Architecture Biennale, and then there is Adriano Pedrosa, the director of the MASPI in Sao Paulo, who is going to create the next Art Biennale in 2024. So this is a message, this is an image that gives a lot of optimism into this changing of the lens on the of the Biennale, which can be again like a mirror of what could be the presentation of the international architecture production and research. And for next year, the topic of the Biennale or the Art Biennale is going to be Strangers Everywhere. And that, of course, is going to be related to very urgent and current issues we live today from different parts of the world. There is a lot of excitement about it because Pedrosa is going to create two separate exhibitions, one a more historical about the migrations in the beginning of the 20th century until the 50s, that also involved like many Italians traveling all around the world, and many Italians traveling to ECT, to Sao Paulo. And then the other part is going to be focusing on the current situation of people displacement all around the world, given to climate or political issues. So we are pretty much looking forward to see what Pedrosa is going to bring to Venice next year. And Pedrosa is also the first curator, the first Latin American curator of the Art Biennale of Venice. Then something that from Venice, I'd like to move to a more international perspective, because of course the first Biennale in Venezia, but then since Venezia, many biennales or triennials all around the world were born. And the second one you're very familiar with is the Sao Paulo Biennale. But then afterwards, the number of international exhibitions with a similar format, but different topics or different geographical areas or focus on different cities, they have been like, let's say, popping up quite fast. So there was a time that they were really like referring to the Biennale fever, where many biennials were getting born all around the world. If you're curious about it, you can have a look at this very interesting platform, which is created by the Biennial Foundation. And there is the map of the world with all the biennials. There is the list, and then you can check yourself about like how many they are, where they are, and where they are concentrated. But something that I wanted to play a little bit with before starting this conversation with you was to see like the difference between the concentration of biennials from Europe to South America. So that is like a strong image, in my opinion, to see like how this format is primarily used and abused sometimes in Europe and in the Northern Hemisphere, while in the Southern Hemisphere is not that much used or applied. There are many like historical biennials, as you know, like in Sao Paulo, with Quito, with Mercosul, with many others in Latin America. But I was really shocked about seeing like this concentration of dots in Europe of biennials. I also never heard about, but that is just like to have a little bit of a context about the differences between the concentration of the different biennials. As I'm saying, like there are many different biennials, not only strictly related to architecture, but there are also biennial or triennials. They focus on urban planning, or they focus like the one in Rotterdam, for instance, or the one in Shenzhen and Hong Kong, or there are biennial, or in Seoul, for instance, or there are biennials they focus on design. There are biennials they are at the same time both about art and architecture. They are quite interdisciplinary, but there are many all around the world. And besides like this format, what I wanted to add, and I wanted to let's say stress about the importance of biennials, is also the importance of seeing these biennials or architecture exhibitions as a tool to explore, to research, to test, and to take some risk in the field of architecture, to test the way how certain contents are presented to an audience of specialized visitors, or to a very broad audience, since the topics that and the challenges that architecture and urban planning today are facing are really challenges that they touch every single person on this planet, it's very important that the message is translated properly, let's say, and that the architect can also see the possibility of participating in an exhibition also as a possibility to address a message to a broader audience. That is then the final, let's say, I don't know if I can say consumer of their work, but is the final destination of the work that they are doing through their job. So this is something that is very important to me to share, and that is something that is coming from the experience at the European Cultural Center, where, as I mentioned before, I work since almost 10 years, and I have the chance to every year work with a very diverse group of international architects, academics, artists, and institutions that they come to Venice to present what is the work that they do in their own context. To give you like a brief introduction about the European Cultural Center, I show you before like the map of Venice. So you see this is the map, and these are the venues of our European Cultural Center. The European Cultural Center is not that old, and has not that long tradition as the Venice Biennale, since we are born in 2011 here in Venice, and since we are born as a branch somehow, as a I say like as a collaboration with the main Venice Biennale in order to host collateral events that are not taking place in Giardino Nazionale but in other parts of the world. And since 2011, we started collecting and inviting international artists and architects to exhibit in our venues. Here you have like a screenshot, like an image of each of the venues that we have in the city. This was our original venues, which is called Palazzo Bembo, and is an ancient palazzo on the Grand Canal, which is here, close to the Rialto Bridge. This is Palazzo Mora, that we later starting to use as exhibition venue in 2013. Palazzo Mora was abandoned for almost 50 years. And the ECC found an agreement with the owners, which is a real estate company, how to be able to use it for exhibitions open to the public, and in exchange for that, to restore the space and make it accessible again for the people visiting it. So that is also to highlight another role that the Venice Biennale or the Venice Biennale related word has in the context of a city, the reactivation of spaces that are abandoned, or also the saving of these spaces, because as it happens with many other cities in the historical center of Venice, due to what I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation and the fact that not many residents are living in here, there are many empty palaces, there are many vacancies, and that means that the spaces are not really not well taken care of. And thanks to the cultural activities that are organized by not only by ECC but also by other actors in the city, we can contribute to keep, to save, and to restore, and then to give back to the people the cultural heritage, the architectural heritage in the city. And then another space that we manage is the gardens of Marina Ressa. These are two public gardens that have been given to us by the city of Venice. They were quite neglected, and since the city of Venice could not take care of them due to the lack of funds, we made an agreement with them that we can take care of the spaces, and we have the obligation, of course, to keep them accessible for the public, for the residents, and on top of that, of course, we are able to create cultural projects, exhibitions, workshops, and events that they are for the local and for the international audience. So basically, the largest site-specific installation, they are part of our exhibitions, then they end up being in in the Marinaresa Gardens. I also share like an image of our wonderful team. We are about 30 people working in the field of art architecture, and from A to Z, we take care of the programming for the European Cultural Center, both for the architecture and the art year. The European Cultural Center does not only, let's say, select the projects they are going to be presented, but we also take care of the production, of the exhibition, of the restoration of the spaces, of the communication of all the projects we do. And thanks to that, we have many former students of Venetian University that became our collaborators and then decided to stay and to contribute to the platform. As I said before, we are basically, our activities is basically following the same program, same calendar as La Biennale, which also happens for most of the activities happening in the city. And that says a lot, of course, about the power and about the potential of such events that, again, are not exhibition only, but they're really like motors for an economy, motors for culture, motor for research, as I said before. Our art exhibition is titled Personal Structures, and our architecture exhibition is called Time Space Existence. They both are taking place in the same venues, and they both involve about 210 different projects spread towards the 3 venues that I showed you before. Now, hopefully it's gonna work. I like to show you like a short video about the current Time Space Existence, which is our architecture biennial exhibition, which opened to the audience in May, on the 20th of May, and is gonna be open to the audience until the 26th of November, again, following the same calendar by La Biennale. Please let me know if the audio works.
Every 2 years, the world stops. Says, how are we projecting the future of our profession in relation to the world?
Actually, it's a bit low, Lucia.
Okay. 1 second, huh? Let's try.
At the left, by the play, I guess.
Okay. Let me know if does it work?
It's still too low.
1 sec. Better?
Every 2 years, the world stops and says,
Perfect.
how are we projecting the future of our profession in its relationship to the world? We're trying to present the laboratory for the future of urbanism, but also the kind of work that we are doing on cities, data and design, community engagement and experts, as being experiments towards a better future of cities.
Housing is much more than the obvious. It can play different kinds of roles. We've picked a problem that actually helped define a typology that we could use many places.
I thought architecture had to have more color, more vibration. I was very interested in architecture always, but after World War II, it became very boring. I discovered Solomonic columns and arches and domes. My work is making fun of architecture, especially of old architecture. Before, nobody would have built this. Now maybe they would build it.
We created an installation that we call Counterbalance that is essentially what we think of as a collective furnishing. We wanted something that people were immediately drawn to and that they wanted to touch and that they wanted to interact with. And we were introduced by the ECC to the fabricators here in Italy. They helped us find a regional material. And that's something we're thinking about in all of our projects. Where are materials being sourced? How are they moving to get to the site? How do we emphasize minimizing waste?
The name of our exhibition is Essential Homes Research Project. It's aimed at starting the debate over temporality in settlements, in the case for humanitarian and other type of crises. And we aim to provide a solution that is more permanent, more durable, that protects inhabitants with a low CO2 emissions with an affordable solution.
The Essential Homes Research Project is located at the Giardini della Marina Resa. We have a room at Palazzo Mora in which we also depict the context. We research photographic representations of different approaches to essential homes. We have also supporting drawings, physical model samples of the material we've been using, and also big images of how can it be used for communities.
I think it's crucial that you imagine for who you are designing and for who you're making a home. We should also think much more in a collective way. It's not just a single home, it's also the collective of many homes together. I could learn a lot from other countries, how they do their affordable housing. Venice is extremely important. Where we meet, it's important to show it to the audience, to come up with ideas, to give politicians or developers ideas, give them inspiration. But it's also very much for the architecture community ourselves, that we inspire each other and that we learn from each other. So all come to Venice, to the European Cultural Center. And there's an enormous amount of exhibitions, and it gives you a lot of inspiration.
Biennales are a cross-section of the future. Venice is the primary place for architects to come together, to have discussions, debate, and deliberation.
It's really worthwhile, honestly, because a lot of smart people come here. People with nerds in the whole world, they wanting to see the work. It's a place where people meet and enjoy each other.
All right. I hope that could give you a little bit of an idea about what we present. Also with the thought that compared to what Venice Biennale does, our idea is not to create like thematic exhibitions and to ask the exhibitors to respond to that thematic. But what we do is to create really like a sort of picture of what is happening around the world, what is happening from the studio of the big masters, as many that you had the chance to see in the video, to the smallest studio or the faraway university, what is happening there and how we can share that on the platform. Of course, there are very recurring topics, as you could hear from the protagonists. So we have a lot about people displacement, a lot about affordable housing, a lot about how to deal with the climate change and the related crises, and many projects which have been presented and are still presented are prototypes and research tests, basically, of applications of new building technologies or techniques, or like a new techniques or new materials or biomaterials applied to architecture and construction. So it's really like a sort of lab of what could be the future of architecture and urban planning. And this for me is a very important message to share, that the exhibition can also be like a place for experimentation, but can also be like a place for activism somehow. So like where the architects can really share and push their boundaries and push the other people they ignore certain issues to pay attention to this very important problematic, and to the importance of the job that architects and planners are doing in different parts of the world. So these are some images from the exhibition that you had the chance to see. We have the Norman Foster Foundation project. We have a lot. This is Princeton University. This is University of Southern California. Many prototypes, as I mentioned before. These are some of the reviews that we had this year on the exhibition. At the end of the presentation, there are also the links to the website related to the project. If you are curious to look at that, feel free to do so. There also the catalog are online, free, and you have the chance to also explore the exhibition through the virtual tours of what is presented now in Venice, and also what was presented in the previous editions. Another and last important aspect that I'd like to share with you is that through the 6 months, which is quite some time of the duration of the exhibition, we also have the chance to create a public program where we basically invite not only the exhibitors in time space existence, but also other experts in the field of architecture and specifically also policymakers that they can make a difference. They can, let's say, take more or less seriously what the architects and the planners are proposing and suggesting, and turn them into realities that can have an impact on the living in our cities or in not only in the cities, of course. And for that, we have created a tool. And this tool is called Shaping the City. Shaping the City is a forum that we started as European Cultural Center in 2018. It's a forum for sustainable cities and communities where, as I mentioned before, we put together architects, planners, academics, and policymakers to discuss about current issues that they really shape our cities, and they can shape the cities of tomorrow. And this for us is again a tool that we can choose to shake things and to benefit from the possibility that we have to gather so many as Adelena de Santos said in the video, so many smart people. They come to Venice to really make a difference and to really put together possible solutions and actions to have an impact on our cities and the future of our living. And for that, I'd love to share with you the last video, and then we are almost done. On October 15 and 16, we had the pleasure to host here in Venice at the European Cultural Center, the second edition of Shaping the City, a forum for sustainable cities and communities. And we had the pleasure to have a very rich group of speakers coming from different parts of the world and sharing their point of view about how we shape the cities of tomorrow.
Shaping the city is a very big statement. So for that, we've decided to view the city in 4 different lenses, 4 different themes: reimagining the city, climate change and resilient cities, building through technology, and architecture for the people.
As you saw in the event, we had such an eclectic group of participants, which came from very different backgrounds and very types of research, which is very refreshing and really puts you in a way that to really calibrate what you're doing and really understand your position in understanding the future of cities.
In a sense, I see the architect as a curator or a moderator that understands different disciplines, that can communicate with different disciplines, and that can actually think outside the box and pull those different specialists in to come up with innovative solutions.
Climate change affects local environment, affect urban and built environment, and to increase local resilience, it's absolutely necessary to introduce adaptation measure, adaptation solution in the urban planning framework and in the way to design and prospect the future cities.
In order to also create a platform of interaction, I think it's absolutely important that people are actually in the forefront of creating new worlds in which they want to live, and not worlds that maybe architects want to just create for them.
The most important thing is that we try to look at what the city of the future should be like, could be like, might be like. So in front of those urgencies, I think that we need to defend a certain agenda, as I said, for the future of the planet, that has to do with how do we mitigate global warming? What do we do about migrations? How about inequality? And what we try to do is to envision the future of our cities, the future of the planet, because we prefer lately to start talking about more of the planet than we do talk about the city itself.
So I think it's really important for me personally and all the people involved to take part in conferences like Shaping the City, because we meet here and we can exchange knowledge first and foremost. And from exchanging this knowledge that we experience here from totally different scales and perspectives, we bring that back into our own world and our profession, and also transport it to the communities and stakeholders that we work with. And as such, building capacity on a global level, I think that is what these conferences help us to do.
The importance of such forums lie in bringing the challenges and the urgencies of our time to the table. Shaping the City aims to evoke new ideas and set the ground for fruitful discussions, sharing of knowledge, and disseminate this to a broad audience.
All right, so this was the video resuming the edition of Shaping the City that we had in 2021, but the conference took place before in 2018. So we had Venice 2018, we had Venice 2021, and then we have been invited, sorry, that's me. We have been invited to bring the format of the forum to other places. As I said before, the intent, the scope is really to take a next step, a step forward from the exhibition, and use, let's say, benefit from all the contents, all the people that have so much to say, bring them together. It's not an academic conference, but it's really a gathering of people that we hope and we push to take actions to try to solve certain problems that are really, really important and that really matters. And we have been happy to bring the forum to other places. And in 2021, we have been asked by the Chicago Architecture Biennial to bring the forum to Chicago. And for that, we have selected the topics that they were discussed in the Chicago Biennial of that year that were mainly related to social issues in the city of Chicago and affordable house related issues. And we brought architects and academics and policymakers from our network to Chicago to discuss with local partners about it. The same happened 2 weeks ago, where we were in New Orleans, again in the United States, where the Shaping the City conference tackled issues related to climate change and the aspects of climate change on water cities. And of course, New Orleans is like a very emblematic examples of this issue, where we put together Venice, New Orleans, and other voices from other parts of the planet that they have to deal with very similar issues, and that they also try to find solutions. And we brought them in front of the Office of the Governors of Louisiana to show them there are alternative solutions to the issues that the state of Louisiana or the city of New Orleans is dealing with. So this is the goal. This is what we are we're working on thanks to the tool that we have created, thanks to the exhibitions that we bring to Venice from all around the world. We have also been invited to St. Louis to present Shaping the City in the form of a workshop during the annual ACSA conference. And these are the two images that you see in the bottom right of the screen. We transformed Shaping the City into a board game. And with architects, planners, policymakers, and local community, we basically play cards, and we try to turn the city in St. Louis in a more livable city. And now again, for the closing of the current exhibition in November, we're going to have the 5th edition of Shaping the City in Venice, which is going to bring 4 different panel discussions taken, which topics are taken from the Time Space Existence exhibition. So again, just to finish up, I started with Venice as a place of a very privileged point of observation about how architecture is presented internationally and what is the evolution of this kind of perspective that is given, to go to what we do at the ECC and what, in my opinion, we can do as operators in the field of culture, in the field of architecture exhibition, which might sound sometimes a little bit funny to say, but really through the exhibition, we have the chance, we have the important chance to use the network to benefit from, not benefit, but make it possible for the broader audience, for the people living in our cities, the people living in other cities, to benefit from the knowledge of the people that we are able to bring together to sit on a table and hopefully take actions on very important matters. That's it.
Thank you very much, Lucia. It was wonderful, very enlightening, your speech. So I'll just break our recording in 2 right now. Okay, so we can have the Q&A separated from the main conference. Well, we're opening. Pessoal, estamos abrindo agora para perguntas, tá? As perguntas devem ser feitas aqui pelo chat, ou se a pessoa preferir abrir a câmera e abrir o microfone, que é sempre melhor para se fazer presente, pode só colocar o nome no chat aqui e se candidatar a uma pergunta. Enquanto isso, eu vou iniciar. Well, while the people start making questions and something, I'll start with one. And having you here, Lucia, among Latin American, African, and Asian speakers is for us an opportunity for having a view and a voice from afar. That is, with a distance that maybe allows you to see things that we don't see from inside. So what do you see when you look south? In terms of art and architecture and what concerns your expertise?
I mean, I see a lot. I mean, I think a lot of like life in terms of like a very like practical solutions. I mean, aesthetically beautiful, but practical solutions to current issues. So I had the chance to see. I mean, again, as I mentioned before, the Aravena exhibition was for me like a mind-blowing experience. To see that. I also have been quite lucky to spend some time in Sao Paulo when I was writing my thesis, and to see like how a big city like Sao Paulo has been growing is different. I don't, it's really like a sort of texture that you cannot find in the cities in Europe, but you can only see in South America. I have no chance to visit all South America, but for what concerns Brazil, I have been quite lucky. And this is something. I mean, if I have to. I cannot generalize about the South because, of course, the South is half of the globe, so it's really, really diverse. I had the chance to spend some time in South Africa, and that is also like a very, very interesting laboratory of the future, as Leslie Locke mentioned. You can really see, look at the future in a more, I don't know how to say, like in a more optimistic way. Like there is like a way like people taking direct action, and people really like architects and planners already from the architecture school really involved, and not only like in words, but really taking actions in their own community. And that is something very very special to me, and that is something that I don't know if we in Europe that was lost or was never there, but it's quite special from my perspective.
I see. That's perfect. Any questions here? Why we don't have them? I'll follow up. So this now is maybe a provocation, but also a chance to understand better the thematics that are being proposed for the biennial and this time space existing exhibition, because this gives a direct relation with the book from Siegfried Gideon, Time, Space, and Architecture, which is a classic from architectural history. But we know that Gideon was somehow a biased propagator of modernistic interests, and if you disagree, please feel free to to express that. But how do that relate somehow? And at the same time, the proper title, Essential Homes, reminds us very much of the first questions posed by the International Congress of Modern Architecture, the existence minimum idea, that propagated with Corbusier and everything. So, of course, architecture design is essentially about thinking future spaces, but at least since the First World War, it has been making promises of a better future, but it has most usually delivered unsatisfactory one, in my point of view. Will it be able to achieve it now once a bigger focus is put on people? Do you believe so?
Thank you for the questions. I mean, first of all, to clarify about the title of the project. The title is really meant to give the big frame that I mentioned before. So really to take a snapshot of what is happening around the world without any, let's say, influence on what would have been the response from the invited individuals or groups. So it's really about what is happening in this time and in this space that then defines our existence. It's very basic, and it's pretty much coming from one of the main thoughts around the creation of the European Cultural Center, which was created by a minimal artist, a Dutch minimal artist, René Ritmeyer, and about how, in response to minimal art, the touch of the artist or the touch, let's say, of the architect is pretty important to define what is the creation in architecture and in contemporary art. So it's totally unrelated. But we often have this kind of question given the assonance with the title of the book, and for what concerns the essential homes related questions, I'd love to ask that question to Mr. Norman Foster because that was a fruit of his idea, but I can relate with what you said about the kind of not pessimistic, but about the the expectation they were not met, no, for the creation of a better future, and I can see that from another generation of architects that we can meet today, right? But in response to that, a better future, I'm pretty sure, is going to be created by the architecture of the future. I mean, again, what I mentioned before about being so active, I think that was not so much part of the previous generation or the generation that you mentioned before. But the young architects and the future architects, and I'm sure like many of those in this conversation, they are really, they're much more aware and are much more participating in the discourse. So I'm pretty optimistic that this better future is possibly to be met.
Okay, let's hope so. Let's see if they can participate on our discourse here. Então, gente, vamos lá, estamos entre amigos aqui. Quem quer fazer uma pergunta? Teve uma moça que abriu a câmera aí agora há pouco, estava com uma carinha de quem queria perguntar. Vamos lá? Alguém? students are always shy, isn't it?
Don't worry.
Usually.
There's a beautiful tool, which is Zoom, sometimes is also a barrier, right?
Yeah. Okay, another point, since you mentioned the minimalist approach or the minimalist start of European Cultural Center, uh, not exactly related to that, but how do you think artists usually deal with the exhibition spaces, the exhibition venues that you have in Venice? Once they tend to be the opposite of the classic white cube for the arts and the contemporary art. Do you think this induces always or almost always site-specific expressions, or it changes the work? For example, if someone brings a work that already exists to these venues, do you think it relates to the place in a somehow different way that it would relate to a white cube?
That's a good question, especially in these days that we are discussing the project for the next art show, sorry, for next year. It's a good question. We have both. So we have many projects, they are related to not only to the let's say space in terms of architectural space, but also in the historical place, the cultural place, the city of Venice. And we have many others that, as you mentioned, have been already produced. So they were not meant to be created for this exhibition. So they don't necessarily relate, especially because you have these big topics that are also applying to the art exhibition about time, space, and existence. So it's really they touch the presence of the artist, and the touch of the presence of the artist doesn't have to be necessarily related to Venice or to the historical place they are exhibiting. They're more universal topics that are not strictly related to one place. What we do from the curatorial point of view is really to try to understand what is the work, what is the message, and how and if it makes sense to create a dialogue with the architecture of the palace or the natural architecture of the gardens or Venice. And if not, we have different spaces that can host this kind of installations. We have also spaces that are kind of white cubes inside. So we work to accommodate every kind of approach to this. To the arts. We enjoy when it's related to the place because we really enjoy the fact that there is a contribution or there is a plus given by the place. So being in Venice makes the project more special. But at the same time, we have the duty to make sure that all the projects are presented in an appropriate way that can tell their own story, even if it's not related to that place.
Ok, perfect. Mais alguém, pessoal? Vamos lá. Os professores, pelo menos, querem fazer alguma pergunta? Zema tem uma pergunta. Fique à vontade, Zema, para abrir a câmera e o microfone, fazer sua pergunta.
Pessoal, boa noite Pedro, boa noite Lucia. Eu tenho uma pergunta muito breve, eu acho que é uma pergunta que deveria, se fosse aprofundada, deveria gastar o tempo de outra palestra. Eu fiquei muito interessado, especialmente na conversa que ela citou a respeito das cidades de água, que ela falou a respeito de cidades de água, né? Ela citou o exemplo de Veneza e citou o exemplo de Nova Orleans. E disse até que apresentou, né, para o governo da Louisiana soluções que foram discutidas na Bienal de Nova Orleans a respeito de como as cidades, como o planejamento urbano, né, pode lidar com o aquecimento global e com as consequências do aquecimento global nessas cidades que têm, vamos dizer assim, uma fragilidade mais especial quando se trata de água, e ela citou esses dois exemplos aí de Veneza e de Nova Orleans. Então, assim, primeira coisa,
Só um
eu acho que...
segundinho, Zema. Só um segundinho. Lucia, are you on the translation mode?
No, I was trying to understand because I have a little bit of Portuguese, but if you can later help me, I would appreciate it.
Do you want me to ask in English about it? Do you prefer?
If you can, I
Right. So
thank you.
Okay, no problem. I was trying to ask you about these so-called water cities. You called them water cities, and you mentioned Venezia and also New Orleans, and you also talked about presenting these ideas for urban planning in these special cases to the government of Louisiana and the issues related with global warming. I think it's a very important, a very current issue for urban planning. And I was curious, first of all, how different is the approach for these cities? Because Venice and New Orleans are very different cases, even though they are facing a similar problem in a way. And what other cities were discussed? Maybe Jakarta in Indonesia, I don't know what other cities were the topic of the presentation, of the discussions. And how can we find something about the conclusions that the biennial arrived at on the internet? Is there some place where we can find the conclusions that you came to and presented to the Louisiana government?
Thank you so much for the question, and thank you for the translation in English. Really appreciate it. I mean, what we noticed, I mean, it's a research project, right? So shaping the city is really like something that we are working on to discuss certain topics. It was very, very interesting to go to New Orleans and to speak about commonalities and differences between the two cities. We started that conversation back in 2021 because an architecture studio, which is called Nano Architects from New Orleans, exhibited in Venice, and they exhibited a research which was putting in parallel the two cities, not only because of the challenges they are facing today, but also for the ways the cities have been created, have been built. So they have like many commonalities in that. And what was one of the things is that New Orleans and also the policymakers from New Orleans, they're really using Venice as a sort of prediction of what is probably going to happen to New Orleans, because the prediction says that the city of New Orleans by 2100 is going to become an island. So if you look at the prediction and you look at the images, you really see a sort of Laguna of Venice in the out of the coast of Louisiana. So that was something very interesting for me, for instance, to learn. It was very interesting to learn about something that is different between Venice and New Orleans, because it's also different between Italy and the United States, and the policies that are applied to the different systems. You know, like in New Orleans, the army built a wall to separate the area where the water can come in during hurricanes or during other big storms, and there are houses on the other side of the wall, and those houses are already decided they can go underwater because the government is not really taking care of everybody. The government is only taking care of certain areas where certain people live, and they privilege that. And that is something that by us does not exist, for instance. And that was very important to create that conversation in front of the policymakers, that even if they were not them directly to decide, but was the previous legislation or the previous before, they had the responsibility to respond when someone asked, like, how can you do that? And how can you choose who is safe or who is not? You know what I mean? So that for me was the most, the strongest difference. We had other examples. We have the examples from Bangladesh, and examples for Bangladesh were related to the largest refugee camps that exist in the world, and that they found that this on water, and they found there are many issues related to water. So how the government reacts on that, and how the infrastructures are created from zero. So it's a different, let's say, water city, if I can say so. The ones that were, let's say, closest one to another were Venice and New Orleans, even if so far away. We had a lot of conversation about Miami. We spoke about New York. I mean, of course, we are in the US, so we have many participants also in the audience from there. We had, we had Colombia, but Colombia with Bogota not thinking about a water city, so some were like directly facing the issues given by the water, let's say, attack in the city. And if you're interested, there is all the conversations were streamed and recorded on YouTube. So on the YouTube channel of European Cultural Center, and you can go on the website of Shaping the City, which is shapingthecity.org. You can find everything. You can find all the conversations from not 2018, but 2021 on. And I strongly advise you to listen to the conversation that took place in New Orleans on the 6th of October. That was with the governor's office of Louisiana. That was with Field Operation, which is an amazing landscape architecture studio from Philadelphia. We had someone from Pro Bogota region. We had people connected from the Netherlands. Of course, the Netherlands is a very important example of how architects and planners work together with the national government to, let's say, not fight against the water. At certain point, yes, but also to find a kind of solution how to coexist with the natural elements. And that was enlightening. And that conversation, I think that was the best in terms of diversity and in terms of quality of contributions and practical solutions given to these issues. So I'm also happy to share later the direct link. So if you guys want to have a look, feel free to do so. And if you have more questions also to connect, we still have to work on it, but we are going to have the proceedings of the conference going to be published online in the next months.
Thank you, Lucia. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Bem, agora temos aqui uma pergunta da Débora. There's the question from Deborah, a student from us, I guess. And how are the participants of the biennial selected? Is there a support and participation of the public organs and politic organs for the execution of these biennials? I guess you touched this along the presentation, but she wants to know a bit further.
I mean, for what concern our biennial exhibition, we as a team do research, and the team is split into different sections. So for instance, I'm responsible for the relationship with the universities. So what I'm doing is that together with my team, we research which are the institutions and which are the countries where we want to focus on. And normally are those where we had no chance to present works from in the previous edition. So we try to explore as much as possible. And then we invite specific institutions and specific faculty. Sometimes we have let's say the School of Architecture participating with a collective project, and sometimes we have a very specific research project developed by an individual faculty, and sometimes it's a work of students together with the faculty. So it can be really diverse. And for what concern educational institutions, normally the management of the school is also let's say the motor that can also like support the contents in terms of logistics, in terms of fundraising, etc. But from our side as ECC, we cannot sponsor directly because we ourselves are independent and private institution, but we support the fundraising process. So we support to apply for grants that might be open for, you know, like if you're based in Brazil, there are some grants, maybe they are only for Brazil-based or Brazilians architects, but we can support providing all the material information. We can support giving benefits for sponsor. They are going to pay to give money for you to come to Venice. On the institutional level, it's really different country from country to country, sorry. So there are countries like United States, of course, they have so many tax benefits for cultural activities that the fundraising is relatively easier for them. For Italy, it's basically impossible. So, like it really depends on the system and how the private and the public work together in order to participate to this kind of international events. We try to establish relationship with embassies, International Institute of Culture, International Institute of Business Development, etc., so that we can set the ground for the potential participants to get the support.
Perfect. This is probably what happened, I guess, 10 years ago or something, when the faculty from Paraguay was invited and they made their installation Aca Alta together with students and everything, I guess, isn't it? You remember that?
It can be. What I know is also, for instance, when it comes to universities, many universities, and as I'm almost sure the one from Paraguay, they have also an existing agreement with the Venice Architecture School, and that helps a lot. That helps a lot because that helps in terms of logistics. That helps in terms of coming to Venice and starting everything from scratch. That helps in case there is an interest to create a collaborative project with another school that might be in Venice or that might be in Europe. Still, that facilitates. But we see a lot of these collaborations, which are super positive, both for those that come from outside and both for the local institution that can have, let's say, more opportunities to learn from the outside.
Of course. Ok, we have another one. Temos mais uma pergunta aqui no chat, que é a do Rafael Campici. Não sei exatamente se ela vai saber responder por não ser uma arquiteta, mas vamos lá. I'm going to translate to you. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to answer that since you're not an architect, but the question is, how is the process to become an architect in Italy? You have to make exams to be a licensed architect?
Yeah. I'm not an architect, but again, I'm surrounded by architects. So so it's so basically, you go to architecture school and you have a minimum of 5 years that you have to go to school, and then when you graduate, you have to take an exam and to get to be a licensed architect in Italy. And then you have to, as I guess, I don't know in Brazil, but in many other countries, you have to constantly keep yourself updated through courses, workshops, and activities. They give you an amount of credits every year, and that goes through the Province Association of Architects, where you are based, where you took the exam and where you were registered in the first place. We do also some activities with the organization of local architects. So, for instance, Shaping the City, the participants of Shaping the City can also get credits to keep, let's say, their own architectural license, but yeah, they have to be licensed here to practice as architect.
Okay, complementing that, once an architect becomes licensed in Italy, can he act all over Italy, or this is regional licensing, as
It's
happens
national.
in Canada, for example? It's national.
It's national, yes. You can be registered in Milan and work in Rome. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's really a smaller country than Canada.
Yeah,
for example.
it's pretty small. So hopefully they keep it like that.
Mais alguém, pessoal? Vamos lá. Aproveitando a presença da Lucia aqui. I'll make a quick one. By the beginning of the year, we see the Gold Lion given to Brazilian representation in the biennial. And how do you see that coming? What are the motives you believe that has given this prize? Because for us from afar, it doesn't seem a lot to be an impact exhibition in terms of visual, in terms of physics space and everything. But yes, of course, in terms of the proposal it brings and the proposition and the provocation it brings. How do you see that?
I see that as the whole Biennale had kind of that approach. So I saw that as being like a pretty coherent response to the theme proposed by Leslie Locke. Many feedback. I mean, it was very interesting because, of course, I couldn't see the Biennale at the very, very beginning because you're so busy with the exhibition that you cannot. So I went there later. And before that, I had so many feedbacks from architects going there and seeing and commenting, etc. And one of the most common comments on the Biennale in general, and also on Brazilian pavilion, is that there is no architecture. You don't see architecture when you go to visit the Biennale this year, something like that, you know? And that, I mean, for me, it's not necessarily a negative thing, you know? It was a very intriguing comment to go and see what was that like. And the Brazilian pavilion absolutely responded in a very clever way to the topic provided, suggested by Leslie Locke, and that was totally in line with that, multidisciplinary, very provocative, but soft and really connected with the culture, but you know, local and universal at the same time. So I think that the jury got that, and the jury really appreciate that approach that was given by the curators.
Ok, perfect. Mais alguém, pessoal? Vamos lá. So I have another one. I guess we have another one on the chat. É uma pergunta também da Débora, acho que é a mesma Débora. Isso. How the Venice population that faces the problem with the tourist access see the tourists, and also these events that also keep attracting more and more people?
I mean, the residents of Venice are quite, we say like quite of like rare animals, they call them here, but in a nice way, meaning that today the mass tourism is not brought by events like La Biennale. The mass tourism is really brought by I don't know how to say that differently, but cheap tourism. It's not cultural tourism. It's really like a one day tourists coming to see the city and to explore the city and go. They don't go to Biennale. They don't go to see museums. They go to see the city per se, and that is the kind of tourist that has the largest impact on the city, because they do not have a positive impact on the economy, because they do not stay in the city, they do not consume in the city, so they do not help the economy of the local businesses, but they use the city, meaning that the city gets dirt, they make the streets busy, etc., etc. And because of that kind of tourism, also the local economy adjusts to that. So you have more and more fast foods kind of restaurants. They replace the local restaurants, so the locals have no place where to go anymore. The locals have like, they have to hide somewhere and find like the last places they have been left. So think like the Biennale and cultural events, they bring another kind of tourism, which is a tourism that does good to the city. And it's a tourism that invests, is also somehow a richer tourism. And this is what allows them to stay, allows them to consume and contribute to the city. Mass tourism was, let's say, what was brought up until a short time ago by cruise ships or by, again, these tourists, they come in one day and do not, benefit from the city, but they don't leave anything to the city. It's still, we keep making jokes because and it's funny because one of the venue we have is a public garden, and it's in a very popular residential area of Venice, where also Biennale is based, and it's very funny to see how residents, they refer to La Biennale for whatever strange happens in town. So whatever things is moving around, it's probably Biennale. It's Biennale. So whatever is alien, is different, that is Biennale. But it's getting more and more because spaces that normally were not occupied by cultural projects, now they are. And what we are trying to do, and other institutions try to do, is really to create something that responds to a request of the local community. So the gardens, for instance, they're really spaces where the community goes and they use the installations. That's why we're very happy when Snoeta suggested to create the counterbalance installation with that swing that allows people to play with, because this is something for benches. It might sound stupid, but in Venice, there are no benches. So people of a certain age, they have no chance to sit and rest and talk, etc. So this year, we really work on that, and the local community appreciate it. But still, we are Biennale for them, but it's okay. It's okay. They can benefit still from what we produce for them. But
so the Biennales are the good side for that, probably, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Also, like the financial machine that is moved by something like Biennale is incredible. You know, like all the logistics, all the hospitality, everything is huge. You know, like if you think like in our own exhibition, we have 215 projects, which means each project is at least 10 people. They come multiple times. They move stuff. They have to use boats. They have to hire people. So it's an incredible motor for the local economy, and that is more and more appreciated, especially compared to the mass tourism.
But do you think that it tends to create a more, I don't know, the rising of prices to select a bit, or to avoid this, what you call the cheap tourism, because this is probably a backlash for that, isn't it? Segregate to make it between commas exclusive experience or something like that, which is, you know, reminds us a bit of this kind of experience that's is not exactly included or possible for everyone, isn't it?
It definitely has pros and cons. I mean, we see the local government trying to find solutions to that, but it's a little bit funny sometimes. So definitely, like, there is gonna be like there is already a separation between the people that can afford the fancy hotels or fancy restaurants, and others they don't. But there is no that middle, you know, that thinking, that section in between. It doesn't exist anymore. So what is happening is that they raise the price and they try to have a different kind of tourism, and at the same time, the mayor wants to put how are they called? Like gates. Like they want to put like a maximum number of people that can access every day the city. Which,
and
you know,
like,
they want to experiment it next spring, if I'm not mistaken. They tried, like they did some tests, and you really like you have like the gates as you go to the stadium. I don't know how to explain them, but it's crazy. It's really like you know, like whole the idea of trying not to transform Venice in Disneyland is actually happening thanks to a gate and a ticket, an access ticket. Years ago, they wanted to make a ticket to access San Mar Square, and that there was a, you know, all the Venetians, they went to San Mar Square to protest, because that is crazy. That is the piazza. That is a public piazza, and you cannot just close it. So on that point of view, Venetians are quite active. You know, like compared to general if I can say so, like a population in Italy, Venetians are quite fighters for their own for their own city, and that's a great thing.
Since ever, I guess, isn't it? Since ever, from what history tells us, I guess.
Yeah. But for sure, we're gonna see like these two lines, let's say, like these two direction of tourism in Venice that is more and more like that, and residents living, which is the sad part. Let's see. It's really up to local government to create a policy for the residents to stay, but not the current one for sure.
Pessoal, mais alguém? Nenhuma câmerazinha aberta, nenhuma pergunta além do Zema aqui com câmera. Vamos mais alguém? Letícia? Letícia quer fazer uma pergunta? Letícia Felsticker, do you have a question? Doesn't seem so. Bom, so I'll make a last one since we're talking about Venice. How do you think it feels or it resonates for Venice to be a sort of beacon for art and architecture agenda in the world? Do you think that make people maybe too vain or lose their humility somehow to be that beacon?
I like that question.
We see that in Rio de Janeiro, you know. Rio de Janeiro, people are super proud of themselves and the city maybe over the top sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's more like for yeah, it can be because you can see different kind of approaches from more institutional. I mean, for us, it's more like an institutional approach, no? So like to be the first one, the first Biennale, the one that sets somehow not the guidelines, but the visions, etc., etc. That for sure something that can make the people not that humble sometimes. But it's also true that, you know, the artistic director changes every year, and that helps a lot, I think, to keep the feet on the ground of the how you say, the organizers, no, of those they take care of La Biennale itself.
Not feeling themselves as kings, for example.
No, but Venetians might feel like that. It's a, you know, like it's a but I see also like now, for instance, traveling for the conferences, that you see a lot of I say like Venetians or Venice-based expert on Venice, that they go to other part of the world and they're a little bit I don't know how to say that, like they think they little bit they know everything about water cities because they are born and raised in water cities, you know, and that's the best and the most beautiful one, something like that. But yeah, I mean it has pros and cons, but I think that in Venice they don't have that much of that approach. It's more when they leave the island, let's say.
Okay. And to finish, now it's true. Can you tell us a bit more, because you were telling that the Shaping the City happened in St. Louis this year and also in another place, and then it's happening again in Venice. First, talking a bit about St. Louis, do they have addressed something related to the Pruitt-Igoe case somehow? Because we know that it's
To the what? Sorry.
Pruitt-Igoe, the building, the housing complex that has been demolished, and Charles Jenks status at the death of modern architecture, you know.
It was not related to that. What we did in St. Louis, basically, we created a board game that was meant to activate the different actors of the city. So basically was we had the map of St. Louis and divided into neighborhoods, and each neighborhood is known for a different reason. And the game was really initiated by like an idea, like a very made up idea. So basically there was an instigation, which was that Elon Musk is coming to St. Louis and he wants to invest and buy the largest trash plants of St. Louis, no? And he's gonna do it, and he's gonna speculate on that, and it's not gonna be safe for the people, blah, blah, blah. So the cards and the roles of the people, they asked the people to activate given the role they had. They had the real estate agent, there is the employee by Elon Musk, there was Elon Musk, there was the local community, there was the students, there were, you know, the architect, the planners, the policymakers. So each of the people had to take the responsibility of the role they covered and to answer to that very specific situation. So there was not, let's say, that much in terms of relationship to the historical city of St. Louis, but it was more to look at the social threads of the different neighborhoods and how the city works and how people, both local and external ones, they could come together and have a point of view on the city that was a new point of view. But it was really like a research. So many things changed during the game. So many roles change. Many players have been independently changing the rules of the game, and that was great. Also because the topic of the larger conference we were invited to participate in was the commons. So it was really like trying to tackle into the commons and how the commons can be a tool to shape the city differently. And we did it through this board game because we worked with this fantastic professor from Sam Fox School, Petra Kempf, who used games in her pedagogical approach. So we put these things together. But
this should have been a lot of fun, and it tackles exactly the point of the problem of the North American cities, isn't it? St. Louis and Chicago. I guess St. Louis has less people today than in the 50s, and if you go to Chicago, you find that, as David Byrne states, the riot style between downtown and the places where you find Frank Lloyd Wright houses, for example, which is very dramatic.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Absolutely. No, it's I mean, and we were very lucky because we spent some time with an historian like on the city of St. Louis, like who really explain us a lot about the history and how the competition, let's say, between Chicago and St. Louis to be the largest commercial city or the most important city in that area of the United States was won by Chicago, and how after that St. Louis became what it is today. And in Chicago, we also had the chance to visit very difficult neighborhoods because of the Biennale. The curator of Biennale, David Brown, he decided to move the Biennale into these neighborhoods to push people to go and see, and to include the communities that normally are excluded from events like the Biennale, or excluded by the possibility to be exposed to international influence, let's say. They're kind of segregated there.
And what is still happening in Venice this year? What are the dates? Can you do us the service for people who want to search and go?
Absolutely. We are going to have 2 days on the 24th and 25th of November, which is going to be in person in Venice, but can also be followed online in streaming on our YouTube channel. And if you cannot see that in that specific moment, that is going to stay recorded on the platform. We're going to tackle 4 different topics. And those topics are taken from the major sub-themes of time, space, existence exhibition. So we have something very interesting from my point of view, which is the future of architecture education. So we invited deans from 5 different schools from all around the world to speak about that subject. We have a topic about displaced communities, so about population displaced because of effects of climate change or political issues, and solutions like the essential homes, for instance. We are going to have another conversation about digital building technologies. So how architects, designers, and engineers, they find new building materials or bio-based building materials or techniques that help us to waste as much as possible, to build as fast as possible, given the needs of the future cities to grow and to build much faster. And then the last conversation is going to be a special conversation between Kengo Kuma, the youngest partner in Kengo Kuma Studio, and one of the maximum expert in Japanese architecture, teaching now at UIC in Illinois Urbana-Champaign. And the 3 of them are going to have a special session about the relationship between architecture and natural environment through the lens of Kengo Kuma. So these are
all of these in 2 days.
In 2 days, we have 4 sessions: Monday, morning, afternoon. It's quite intense, but you can also follow like afterwards and take it in parts.
Oh, that's great. I feel like going if I could.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you. We have a last question from Romano Arruda. Oi, Romano, você quer abrir a câmera e fazer a pergunta? Como você quer fazer? Romano?
Yeah, I see.
You see, you understand?
Yeah, I understand. Now, this is something that I mean, when I was invited to participate in this conversation, I was very happy to do so, and I started asking myself about why, from the place where I am not able to speak that much about the Global South besides what I've been sharing with you, and that it's really the mirror of what is the education, the perspective, and what is overexposed nowadays, right? So I had the chance to meet through my personal experience, but I had no I don't say training that is not part of our curriculum. And that is something that absolutely needs to change, and that what hopefully is going to change thanks to the participation of curators like Aravena, Loco, Sarkis, and others. They can really bring that perspective that is missing today to the global conversation. I wish I could speak more about it, and I hope that we can catch up very soon.
Perfect. Então, Romanda, acho que é um pouco isso, né? A Lucia está aqui para nos trazer, de certo modo, uma visão de fora, né? Do ponto de vista curatorial e de arte. Então, é exatamente como um contraponto, de certa forma, aos nossos convidados locais, né? Que ela está vindo aqui contribuir. Bom, I guess we already advanced a lot. You might be tired. I guess it's almost midnight or more where you are, isn't it? So I'd like to thank you very much once more, Lucia, for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me, and for all of you to be here. And again, if later on you might have questions or curiosities, I hope that you can get in touch and we can follow up.
Thanks again very much for your time and generosity.
Of course.
Okay, see you soon. Bye bye. E agradecendo também a presença de todas e todos terem ficado até o final.